Dear students, I am Sobha Bansiwal, Assistant Professor English, SPC Government College Beam. Today we are going to study the poem uh, to Autumn by John Keats. In this poem, which is a ode, uh, Keats speaks about the season of autumn. In this poem, he describes the bounty of the season. Means he describes the fruits of the autumn season, and then he speaks about the um, the occupations of the season, and in the last he speaks about the songs of the season. In the first stanza, he speaks about the fruits or bounty of the season of autumn. He says, season of mist and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him to conspiring with him how to laud and bless with fruit the vines that round the hatch eaves run, to band with apples the most cottage trees, and file all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and pulp the hazel cells with the sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Uh, in this stanza, uh, in this stanza, John Keats speaks about the fruitfulness of the season. He says that in the autumn is the season of mist and mellow fruitfulness, and he says that autumn, it appears to him that as if the season of autumn conspires with the sun to fill all the fruits with sweet kernel and fruitfulness. Um, in this season, the vines uh, are are overloaded with grapes on the rooftops where they are uh, the vines are overgrown. They are laden with grapes, and the apple trees which are grown in the cottage yards uh, are loaded with apple fruits, and these tree these and the branches of the trees of apples hang towards the ground because of the load of the fruits, the fruits of apple, and still all fruit with ripeness to the core, and the season of autumn with the help of the maturing sun uh, fill uh, fills all the fruits with ripeness, to swell the gourd and pulp the hazel cells with sweet kernel, and it conspires with the sun to swell the gourd and to plump the hazel cells, and hazel cells uh, with a sweet kernel or sweetness, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, and autumn season conspires with the maturing sun uh, to grow more and more flower the more and more buds into flowers, uh, and the bees which collect sweetness or honey from the flowers will think that the season of summer will never end, uh, for summer has overbrimmed the clammy cells. In the season of summer, the cells of the honeycombs have become full uh, with full full with honey. But even in autumn season, uh, there are so many flowers, and the bees keep on collecting honey, so they honeycombs have become overfull with honey. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-ribbed furrow, sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look, thou watchest the last oozing hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? In this stanza, John Keats describes uh, the um, the occupations of the season. In this stanza, we see that Keats personifies autumn season as a winnower, as a gleaner, as a reaper, and as a presser. Uh, he says that when we go outside in the field, we can see the season of autumn sitting carelessly in a field, and the and and it and her hairs are uplifted by the air, flowing the air. So in this season we can see the autumn season sitting carelessly on the field uh, granary floor in the field. uh, in it means Keats personifies autumn as a winnower, and then he personifies uh, autumn season as a reaper. He says that in the autumn season we can see a reaper uh, cutting crops, uh, and during the course of this work, the reaper becomes the reaper becomes um, tired, and because of the smell of the poppies uh, grown nearby, she feels intoxicated, and she becomes sleepy as she goes to sleep, and her work remains incomplete. Uh, in the next Keats personifies autumn as a gleaner who uh, who goes towards homeward, crossing a brook, and there is a load of grain on her head. In and then he personifies the season of autumn a um, as a gleaner, as a cider presser, in which uh, she crushes apples to to for she crushes apples uh, for getting this juice of these apples, and she patiently watches the drops coming out of the cider press. So in this stanza, John Keats personifies in this stanza uh, in this stanza In this stanza, John Keats personifies autumn as a uh, um, winnower, a reaper, a gleaner, and a cider pressure. In the last stanza, he speaks about the songs of the autumn season. Here he says, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, and in a it means think, whereas the songs of spring season are ye, where are they? Think not of them. Uh, Thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, and in a wailful choir, the small gnats mourn among the river shallows, borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with trebles soft, the red breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the sky. In this stanza, John Keats speaks about the songs of the autumn season. He says, whereas the songs of spring where are they? He sadly says that where have the songs of spring season have gone. Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. Then he compensates by saying that uh, we we must not feel uh, sad because of we have lost the songs of spring season. Rather, we should be happy because we have our own song in the autumn season. Um, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plants with rosy hue. Uh, the poet says that when the sun during the time of evening when the sun sets, uh, the rosy color of the rays of the rosy light of the sunset falls on the stubble plants, the plants from which crops have been cut, and they remains only stub, stubbles. um, on those plants when the sunlight of the during the sunset falls on mm, these fields, uh, in a wailful choir, the small gnats mourn. During this time, we hear the songs of the autumn season, such as and in a choir of the small gnats mourn among the river swallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. During this time, during the sunset time, when uh, uh, the sunlight falls on the stubble plains, we hear the sound of the nets, which produce a morning sound, and these nets rise and fall with the flow of the wind, um, and full grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. And during this time, we hear um, these nets. We hear the sounds of these nets by the riverside, and and uh, at this time we hear uh, the bleating sound of full grown lambs from the hillside where they are kept. His crickets sing, and during this time we hear the singing sound, or uh, the sound of the crickets or grasshoppers uh, who near the hazes. And now with trebles soft, the red breast whistles from a garden croft. And during this time, we hear the sound of the robin redbreast, who which whistles in a garden or orchard, and gathering swallows twitter in the sky. And during this time, the the swallows gather and they twitter um, uh, to get ready uh, to go somewhere in winter season. In this poem, kids speaks about the uh, fruits of autumn season, occupations of autumn season, and the songs of autumn season. Here in this poem, we find a uh, optimistic note. The poet says that although we have lost the songs of the spring season, but we should not feel grieved because of that, and because we have our own song in the autumn season, the songs of um, gnats, robin redbreast, swallows, and grasshoppers, uh, and the song of the lambs, and all these sounds create a musical sound. So we should not feel sad because of the loss of the songs. And the autumn season has its own bounties, the bounties of fruits, songs, and occupations. Thank you.